Technically, you know, my picture taken. Hide out of the way.
Liana Deer.
Oh, nice job, Leon. Here we go. Here we go.
Good job.
Nice job.
Sorry.
We're missing a committee member over here.
We have Kira.
Kira. Do we have Kira's on my desk?
Thank you.
There, get in there, Mrs. Scales. Come on. Get in there.
We had to.
He ordered
Thank you.
Ira Shamus.
There we go. Let's go. Nice piece. That was fun, right now? Good. You made that?
Good job.
Eliza Sabella.
I promise when I sit everyone down, it'll be 5 minutes. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eliza.
The other side, Chris.
Carissa DaCosta. I don't think she's gonna block this picture.
All right, one more for me. Mr. Murphy, here we go.
We're gonna make a calendar out of these for the next academic
My
year.
next job.
The Ken Sheen and assorted artists.
Yes.
Good turnout, artists.
Sabrina Boylan.
Nice job, Sabrina.
We can't.
You don't want to be in it?
No, come on, Lori.
Laura, get in it.
Yeah. You want me to have her move her head?
No, it's okay.
Yeah, like that.
Congratulations. Amy Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
Let's keep it up. Come on.
All right, Julie, right over here.
Sorry. How come she has 4 cameras? Like,
Look at that piece of art. Doesn't that answer the question? Look how good that is. All right.
Did you get a shot?
look at that.
Thank you, everyone.
Your head wasn't in the way.
All right, Fran, I think you're good, hon. Oh, now you're over there.
Okay, I'm coming.
Only done it once.
Okay, we can go back, please.
Okay, so I think this is our last one.
Olivia Kelly.
Grab this piece.
Give it up.
Yeah, it's not. All right, nice job, everybody. You guys can grab your seats really quick.
I didn't realize Olivia's here, too.
Do I get to pick one, Bill? I get to pick any one of these I want. Oh, no.
Now we're gonna auction them all off.
That is beautiful.
All righty. I think we still have everybody here for the most part, right? All right. So if you're just joining us, this is the meeting of the Attleboro School Committee, which is being electronically recorded. And tonight we are, as we do every 6 months or so, honoring the student artists from the Attleboro school system who were kind enough over the course of the 14-15 academic year to share with the school committee their artwork, which has been on display in our conference room for the most part for the spring. And on behalf of the school committee, I did want to say to each of the student artists who have received a citation from the school committee that Mr. Withers has volunteered to read, that we are extremely grateful to you and to your teachers, your art teachers at the various schools, particularly Miss Casey from Coelho Middle School, our district-wide art coordinator, who's kind enough to help us organize this and put together an art display that helps the school committee and those who meet in this room throughout the course of the day remember that first and foremost our responsibility is to focus on the best interests of students and to help cultivate the types of creativity that have produced the work that is on our walls in this room right now. So again, on behalf of the governing body of the Attleboro Schools, I want to thank each of you, and I'd ask Mr. Withers to read the citation.
Thank you. It reads, the Attleboro School Committee hereby extends its appreciation to our student artists for contributing to the student artwork display in the school committee conference room over the course of the 2014-2015 academic year, for helping to ensure that the seat of the governing body of the Attleboro Schools is a welcoming, vibrant, and student-centric atmosphere. The school committee offers its most sincere gratitude. Signed, David Murphy, Chairman, June 22nd, 2015.
Thank you, Mr. Withers, again. So, we are grateful to you for sharing your creativity with us. You'll get your artwork back in the near future, and some of your classmates and peers will, I hope, allow us to display their work when the new school year starts. So I know that you've got only a few days left of school, but we hope that you enjoy those days, and as I'm sure your parents will, and your summer vacation, which will be coming up just next week. So again, congratulations to each of you, and we will see you in the fall. Okay, good night. We'll take a 5-minute recess.
Bill. Lord.
Thank you for coming in. Thanks, parents.
Bill.
Thanks, Donna. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, guys. For coming. Thanks for coming in. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Why?
You guys
Oh,
have-
that's.
Thank you very much.
I can see.
Getting mad at me right now.
Camera.
I just like the, I have those.
They would have thought you had eye surgery.
Headline news.
It's questionable.
Do you guys want to stick around?
No, I gotta get this one looked at. I'm gonna keep going.
Okay.
But the other is staying.
Okay.
But thank you.
Okay.
No, that's okay.
So for a little while there was nice and comfortable in here. There was a nice little AC going, and what felt now it's all of a sudden.
Once we get that door closed.
It's like they put the switch. We get hot.
Yeah.
Hot.
And so that's what we got.
Are you going to Canadian night on Thursday?
Yeah, I'll go.
You know it's hot, yeah. You afraid to go back?
I hate this. It doesn't.
I took that jacket off. Yeah, I got it finally a little warm.
be hot.
So they don't give you enough time to do anything.
I'm usually always cold.
You'll cover it. Not like you're talking about your priorities or anything. It's really just a hobby. Yeah. It's really, you know what that is? It's so the GOP can have an event, but not have to really take on a real event.
That's true.
Yeah, they don't have to take on candidates night. They don't have to, I mean, the debate. They don't have to take on.
She let her out, she goes out and rides
there
with
won't be
the sun
one
and
because-
flies. And you have to fight for that elimination and die.
There'll be
There wasn't last time. There was.
Wasn't one last year.
that's
Wasn't one 2 years ago.
There were,
true, huh?
and there were actually
I
some.
remember going with the debate. You know, you're right.
We debated,
Yeah, if there's no mayor,
and there was no,
there's no mayor, they don't care.
Okay, next.
Hi, Dave. How you doing?
It's been a hell of a day. Please rise and join the school committee for the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And as I said earlier, this meeting is being electronically recorded. We have a few recognitions tonight, one of which we've just completed. Those of you who joined the celebration of the student artists in progress, and they're gone now. Most of them, I think they're all gone. But I would say that the contributions of Sue Casey and Jason Parento over the course of the past year, helping to make the school committee conference room look more like a room where adults who are focused on students work and less like a room where adults who are focused on themselves work is greatly appreciated, as are all the contributions of the students and families who were with us tonight. Also contributing to the betterment of the Attleboro schools are our student representatives to the school committee, Tyler and Jack, Mr. Stowe and Mr. Flynn. Mr. Flynn, whose last name I think I've been misspelling on agendas all year, which I recently learned, and I apologize for that. But that's a good goal for next year, that perhaps we can move forward with that. But Mr. Flynn and Mr. Stowe were recently reelected to their positions as the student representatives of the school committee. They have served very well and very effectively in that position over the course of the past year. This is the first time in some time that we've had members from the junior class at the high school are serving in this position, so you'll be the first incumbents to come back and join the school committee, and we're certainly grateful to you for not running for the hills after your experience over the course of the past year, and we look forward to working with you again throughout the next year. I know you have had some programs that have been executed just in the past several weeks. If either one of you would like to share any thoughts or comments on that, you're certainly welcome to. Or, as I said, you're up until the point where we have to take votes, you're as much members of this body as anyone else here. So if you have any other thoughts or comments as the academic year comes to a close, this would be an appropriate time to share them.
Yeah, so last week, me and Jack both went to Boys State, and I thought this position that we hold now, for me personally, it really helped me gain leadership experience. So when I got there, I didn't really just sit there in the back and not talk with ideas. I just came out with my ideas and told them what I thought. And obviously there's controversy and stuff like that, but again, this position prepared me for that, so thank you.
Yeah, I think we're excited to do the job again and do it even better.
That's the spirit. That sounds good. And we'll try to keep the controversy going so you can keep having that practice and navigating the political waters there. But no, honestly, it's been a pleasure getting to know each of you over the course of the past year. There are taking on positions of student leadership, I think, is one of the ways in which you can really extract as much value as possible out of your school experience generally, but certainly out of your experience at high school. So I'm certainly grateful to you for being willing to do that, and we'll certainly do our best over the course of the next year to make sure that we have as much substantive work for you to participate in as possible. I know there are going to be a couple of projects that I suspect we'll be touching base about over the summer, and that'll certainly be true when school starts up again in the fall. So congratulations on your re-election, and we look forward to working with you over the course of the past year, next year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations, guys. Now get out of here. All right. We were scheduled to be joined by our Attleboro High School Alumni Association, but we're not, because we've had some scheduling difficulties, and they've also executed a number of initiatives and projects over the course of the past year, and Miss Oliver and Mr. Viveris and all the other individuals who have really brought that organization to a place where they really are making contributions to our schools community and our community at large. Will be joining us, I think, at some point later in the summer to talk a little bit about their calendar of events and some of the things that they have planned over the course of the next year as we continue to cultivate relationships with alumni, strengthen those, and to do so in a way that benefits our current and future students. So for those tuning in solely for Alumni Association, they'll be here, they just won't be here tonight. We'll move on to our open forum. Would anyone like to address the school committee as part of open forum? Going once, Only twice, that's the end of open forum, and we'll move on to our consent agenda. Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $143.04 from Staples to Attleboro High School.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $400 from Target to the following gifts donations lines. HS $150, Brennan Middle School $75, Hill Roberts Elementary School $100, Studley Elementary School $25, the Early Learning Center at Thatcher Elementary School $50.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $1,454.12 from Stop and Shop to the Attleboro High School gifts donation line.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Motion to accept two 32-inch flat-screen televisions with an estimated value of $150 for use at Willett Elementary School.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. A motion to declare two pianos from Hill Roberts, one Melody Grand upright and one Fisher upright as surplus as they are non-repairable and or non-usable.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And finally, we have a last-minute addition to our consent agenda tonight, and I'd ask Mr. Palma and Mr. Martin if they could join us, if they'd like to join us. Mr. Palma, of course, is our principal of Studley Elementary School. Mr. Martin is the president emeritus
Yes.
of the Studley PTO, and I know that we had a significant financial contribution to the Studley community that was a last-minute item to our addition to our agenda. So, Mr. Palmer, if you'd like to share with us the background and talk a little bit about what this will allow us to do.
Absolutely. Mr. Martin and I have been talking most of the year about what the school needs, and our PTO is very focused and works very hard at fundraising and working hard for our building. And throughout the year, he's been able to see our Chrome cart in action. And it notices that it gets a lot of use,
Sure.
and it's a high wanted item. And one of the things we had talked about is how could we get another one? And originally he said, well, let me see what we can do, and maybe we could do half the cost. And just today, actually, he informed me with his PTO board that they voted today, and they'll be paying for one in whole. So we'll be receiving a donation to completely cover the cost of a brand new Chrome cart.
Great. Well, again, Mr. Martin, to you and to all the individuals in the organization, we're extremely grateful. And I think the partnerships that we enjoy with parent organizations and the families of the school district are as important as any other partnership that this district has. And certainly we couldn't do the type of work we do or make the progress we have without those types of partnerships, and this is certainly evidence of that. So thank you to you and your board and to everyone else involved.
Thank you.
And so just from a procedural standpoint, is the are we looking to make the donation now?
Yes.
Okay. Just my only
Yes, they checked their
Yes.
books today.
Okay, so a motion to accept a donation, it's 10,000, correct?
$10,000,
Okay.
yes.
This is what happens when we can make last-minute additions.
Well, it was a surprise today. Opening up that email
it's
was
a pleasant
quite
one. If you have any other surprises, we'll be
I
happy.
have 2 days left. That's all my surprises.
We're always happy to make agenda amends, particularly when there are zeros involved. So, motion to accept a donation of $10,000 from the Studley PTO.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Other than thank you, obviously. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Again, Mr. Martin, Mr. Palmer, thank you very much, and please extend our gratitude to the Studley PTO as well.
We'll do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to our business agenda, and our first item is the completion, more or less, of our filling out our 2015-2016 academic calendar. The school committee did adopt a calendar some time ago, featuring a first and last day of school, a number of school vacation days, but we have not, to date, scheduled the early release days, which I know are always a favorite topic in various circles, for the 15-16 academic year. And we'd also need to schedule the commencement ceremony date, of which some of the end-of-the-year activities are centered around. So, Mr. Sawyer, I know you have some comments with regard to that.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Murphy. Working first with the district PD committee to identify what they thought would be a good set of early release days to support our PD schedule, and then bringing that up through our lab to work out those ideas. We've brought forward a proposal for the early release days for the district next year. The first, as you can see, is September 18th. The next is October 9th. The 23rd we had already approved, or you had already approved through our proposal, which is not an early release for PD. That's a travel day. January 15th, February 12th, and April 15th are the other early release days during the year, and then the 14th as the last day for students. So that's in keeping with the number we've had in past years, and follows the trend that we picked up last year of putting them on Fridays and in conjunction with vacations and holidays to give families a little bit extra time if they happen to be going away to do some extra travel.
Any questions or comments, Mrs. Scales?
Can you explain the shaded areas in September?
Oh, those are the Jewish holidays. I just need to make sure that we don't put them on those days, so I had them in there.
Mr. Sturz.
I just want to, again, I know we started last year, but commend you on making the change, going to the Friday, and doing it in conjunction. I've heard nothing but positive feedback from people in the community about this. So,
and after some initial concerns, I think internally we've found that there are benefits to it as well.
I think there are benefits to it, and I'm glad that the feedback has been generally positive, and that's been my experience as well. I just think that whenever we talk about these calendar issues, I think it's worth pointing out that there is no perfect calendar, and that there are always downsides. Someone out there, it would be better if the half day was on Monday as opposed to Friday, or that we adopted something else. And I think that what is encouraging about the calendar decisions that have been made more recently is that there are certain principles with an E, not an A, that are underlying the thought process behind the calendar, that we have a certain strategy and a certain approach, and we're trying to adhere to that in a way that is consistent and hopefully in students' best interest. So
the exciting, well, I mean, I don't know if it's business, but the exciting news in that vein is that
exciting.
Exciting, yeah.
Okay.
When it comes to calendar talk, we haven't had exciting news in a while, but using the same methodology that produced this calendar, we did project out and create the calendar for the following school year, which was included in the agreement with the AEA. So, we have that calendar in place already, and we'll be able to do this work that we're doing tonight, when it should be done, which is much, much earlier in the year next year.
That is exciting.
I think so.
Yeah, no, look.
I look forward to it.
To each their own. Tyler likes it, I can see. No, but it is. It's good. It's important. It's a good step forward, and appreciative, Mr. Sawyer, of your efforts and the entire Leadership Advisory Board for the work that's gone to this. And I think it's a good model by which decisions will hopefully be made going down the road and applied in a variety of circumstances. So, anyone else have any questions or comments calendar related? So right now, do you want to talk about commencement as well? Sure.
So the final piece for next year is graduation, which we have a recommendation from the high school administration for it to be June 3rd.
Which is in keeping with the Friday. I guess we have a leap year situation, right? No.
Yes, I do.
I know my leap years. Yep. Yeah, so that's, if it seems early from the 5th to the 3rd, that's because that's why. Any other questions related to that? What's that?
And we started school earlier.
That too. Also helps. Hopefully we don't do that every 4 years. All right. Motion to approve the calendar recommendations with regard to both the half-day release schedule and commencement.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, we're gonna skip ahead a little bit, and we'll go back in the agenda. I did want to provide a brief superintendent transition update. This was a process that the school committee approved on June 2nd. We had a timeline attached to it. This presentation will look very similar to the one that we discussed on June 2nd, but it does have some updates in it, which I think are worth mentioning. This one, while some time ago I wouldn't think it needed to be mentioned, I think it does, and I'll say it again, that the school committee has the sole prerogative in appointing the superintendent of schools in a community. That's according to Massachusetts law, according to the Attleboro City Charter, and that's a responsibility that this body takes very seriously and will execute through the inclusive process that we have here. Speaking of things that you didn't necessarily think you needed to mention, but we do, so we will. Each superintendent transition going back over the past 20 years in Attleboro, there have been 7 altogether, maybe 6, has taken place under different circumstances, under a different timeline, and a different process has been used. The inclusive and transparent process that this committee has approved and did approve unanimously on June 2nd is reflective of the circumstances under which this transition will take place. This again reiterates context is important. 2 years ago, we conducted 39 focus group and interview sessions, and that process has continued throughout an inclusive strategic planning process that is still underway. Here's an update from the last slide when we discussed this. Some things have already taken place. The approval of the transition process, the job posting, the solicitation of volunteers for the interviews. Thank you, by the way, to everyone who did write in and volunteered. It was encouraging, as always, to see people interested in participating, interested in having their voice heard, and helping to make sure that this process is a thorough and complete one. This talks a little bit about the interview committee. This was the composition that the school committee approved on June 2nd. And here are your appointments that I am making under the relevant school committee policy. Mr. Larson, Ms. Singer, Mr. Tyler from the school committee, educators, some of whom have been recommended by the Attleboro Education Association, and I thank that organization for their willingness to participate as well. Ms. Cerrone from Brennan Middle School, Ms. Dugan from Hill Roberts Elementary School, Ms. Swintak from Will Elementary School, Mr. Westwater from the high school. Parents from the Attleboro Public Schools, Ms. Segopian, former PTO president of Hyman Fine, Ms. Ferrara, the current chairperson of the Attleboro Special Education Parent Advisory Council, Mr. Periker, one of our very trusty volunteers in various projects throughout the school system, and representing the community at large, Mr. Quelia, who of course was at one time the director of the Career and Technical Education and is superintendent of schools in his own right at a regional technical school in the area. And for our administrators, Mr. Palma and Mr. Bowles, representing their administrator team, and Ms. Braza, who is our student representative and did such a good job executing the time key transition at commencement that she was promoted to the superintendent interview committee. I want to again thank everyone who did volunteer. There are some individuals, we can't have an interview committee the size of a football team, so some individuals who did put their names forward, I have saved their names and contact information, and I suspect that there will be other parts of the process that I will be reaching out to them in hopes that they might participate over the course of the summer. With regard to public comment opportunities, this is a re-announcement. The school committee is holding office hours Wednesday. That's right. Ms. Nelson, that's correct, right? Mm-hmm. Wednesday, yeah. Wednesday, office hours at Willett Elementary School in Hill Roberts. We have convened office hours, focus groups, or public comment opportunities at each school building, with the exception of 2 out of the 9, and we just sort of ran out of time, but we will be taking the school committee show to those buildings, and certainly we'll let the anticipation build in the Brennan and Wamsutta communities. And then finally, the day after school ends, the conclusion of the academic year, we will be holding a town hall forum on Saturday morning in B1 cafeteria at the high school. And that's, as always, open to the public, and members of the school committee will be there to speak with constituents or with staff members. I would say my mom was a teacher for 32 years, and the only 2 days that my sister and I were not allowed to bother her were the day after Christmas and the day after school ends, so I do feel the timing was not ideal with regard to the forum taking place the day after school ends, but there's only so many days in the calendar, and that's the way that goes. I did want to convey one point with regard to the town hall forum. I don't think, again, I don't necessarily know that this needs to be pointed out, but I think just in case there's any confusion, the point of the town hall is not for folks to come and tell us what individual they think should be superintendent. The point of the town hall is for an open dialogue as to how we are to advance the goals of the Attleboro school system and what leadership characteristics are important in service to those goals and in service to our students. So I did just want to make clear that this is, if you have someone in mind, this is not the time to come and campaign. And again, we finished as always with the vision of the Attleboro schools because while some may think a superintendent transition process is just an opportunity for political exploits, what it really is it's a thoughtful, methodical effort by the school committee to advance our goals and to move this school system to the center of the Attleboro community in a way that benefits our students and the community at large. That's what it is that we're working toward. That's the point of the process that we've approved, and that's our goal that we're going to seek to fulfill when this committee appoints in the near future. So, and back to our mission. So that is the update on the superintendent process. Again, office hours, they're at buildings, but that's just because we're trying to move it around and get people, make it as convenient as possible. We've already held them again at several of the other buildings, Hill, Robertson, Willett. We're either lucky or unlucky, depending on your perspective with regard to this round. This is the third round of office hours that the school committee has convened over the course of this year, and that's in addition to the public comment opportunities that we did during the mission and vision drafting phase over the winter. So it's our attempt at making sure that we are listening and also at the end of the day, regardless of what way the proverbial winds are blowing, making decisions that are in the best interests of the students of the school system. Anyone have any questions or comments with regard to the process? Hopefully it's self-explanatory, and I would imagine that we'll have additional updates. I have solicited the members of the school committee their vacation schedules over the summer. It's never been entirely clear to me why a policy-making body takes time off during the time where we could actually have thoughtful deliberations. So we'll be putting together a summer schedule in the coming weeks, and there'll be further updates at that time. And again, I do want to thank Mr. Tyler, Mr. Larson, Ms. Singer, and all the other members for offering their services and their willingness to participate both in the process and in the solicitation of public comments over the course of the next several weeks. Moving on, we have Mr. Furtado. Could you join us for a transportation update? I know you've been waiting eagerly to provide this information to the school committee, and we look forward to hearing your thoughtful, deliberative, diplomatic comments.
Always.
Avoiding fault lines and any other problems that we don't want to hear about. So, Mr. Furtado, we know that we began the year not where we wanted to be from a transportation standpoint. There were a number of administrative difficulties and challenges that began the first wave of school committee office hours. It's nice when the school committee office hours take place because we are open and genuinely want to hear from constituents, not because we're afraid of a riot breaking out or a stampede coming through the door. So could you give us a sense as to where we are in terms of policy implementation and from an administrative financial standpoint, how are we looking for the start of the 15-16 school year?
Yep, lots to report, Mr. Chairman. First of all, as you probably know, administrative systems, student databases, transition at the conclusion of school years. There's a lot of things to do this year, entering with grades and those sorts of things. So we did a lot of manual work to update student information and provide kind of a first blush at where we're going to be from a transportation perspective, given the policy changes the school committee enacted. We also had to, as you know, rearrange zones for fee-for-service and for walking. All of that had to be done manually. So we have completed that work. We have a full kind of layout of what the system's going to look like in the new school year. We are waiting for the end of the school year to kind of do it electronically and in our student database. We are right on schedule, as we have reported to the committee before. We certainly expect by mid-July to have the system and the information finalized. We will have routes published prior to the middle of August in newspapers. We expect to
prior to the middle of August. That is still a fairly wide window.
Early August.
What's that?
Early August as opposed to the last week in August. A month before.
Okay, but it's not realistic to hope for the publication prior to that, though?
No. We're going to take 3 weeks between the rollover of the student database and the publishing of the information to make sure everything is finalized.
Okay.
So we will be in a position, as we promised the committee, to accept fee-for-service students as they process applications, as opposed to putting them on a waiting list to see if we have seats. Right now, it's really close between running 29 or 30 buses, so we're kind of right on the cusp there. And finally, one of the concerns we have that policy can't mitigate is the kind of tidal wave that comes in sort of the week before school starts and the week after school starts, that kind of 2-week period where folks realize they hadn't registered their students for school, and it's a pretty hectic period. I think we reported out to the committee that we registered 300 students in that period last year. There's no system to manage that. There's no way to accommodate that. That's just a force of nature. We would ask for permission to kind of freeze that period and make sure that what we had prior to the tidal wave holds in terms of the practice during the start of the school year, and then after that settles in, accommodate all the folks that have kind of come in late to the process.
Any concerns from a statutory standpoint in terms of our ability to do that? Are there not students, even if they're enrolled late, that we would need to provide or need to accommodate?
We will. It's just when. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And we need to be sure of, again, the attendance on the buses. We anticipate and fully expect there to be some residual from what happened this year where students just kind of show up, jump on a bus and get to school. Mm-hmm. We're going to have to read through that and assign them to the proper bus and make sure our buses are loaded as they're supposed to be by the demographics in the student database.
Okay, so it sounds then like we have an open question as to a decision that we may have to make to ensure the efficient administration of this process.
The relative stability for 85 to 90% of our students on the bus versus.
Okay, so then I think what I would say then is we've said over and over again over the past 10 months that we want the district thinking differently with regard to promoting the enrollment of students. And so part of that, if this is something we're going to have to, a new wrinkle we're going to have to add to enrollment, if we're going to have a time that by which you're not going to be put right on a bus, then that has to be added to whatever communication we're making. As I think this is the first the committee's hearing of the request.
Yes.
And we're going to be meeting again a week from tonight.
Yep.
I'd like to take up the request at that time and perhaps have it written out and documented exactly what the request is and what the specifications will be and what efforts we're going to make to make sure that it's as that it's there's as little disruption as possible to families. Our point from the beginning has been that we recognize fully that we need to do things differently as an organization from a transportation standpoint. There were personnel changes that needed to be made, and they have been, and there are practices and policies that needed to be changed, and they have been. But I appreciate the vigilance that you and your staff are making to make sure that those problems don't repeat themselves. And if there are specific actions that you're going to ask the committee to make, I would just ask that they be put in writing prior to the end of this week so we can deliberate on that next Monday.
Sure. And I have a brief overview to hand out to the committee. Two other matters that have been reported out to finance, but not, I don't think, to the full committee. One is we expect to have a surplus in the transportation budget at the end of the year. We are expecting it to run somewhere between $80,000 and $100,000. That, again, as the chairman just pointed out, that's due to a whole bunch of process changes and people, to throw a pun out there, keeping their hands on the wheel. The department is running very efficiently, very effectively. We're utilizing our resources to mitigate all of the high-cost routes and circumstances that we run into, and allowing the vendors to take the lower cost, leftovers, if you will, if there are any. So that's one item the committee should be aware of, is we have a significant surplus for the current year, and that is after not getting funding that was requested. In addition to that, I have reason to believe the council has not voted on this yet, but through the discussions with the solicitor for the city, there's an expectation on our part that we will be able to lease new vehicles. We have provided the final lease documentation to the city and expect that matter to be brought up shortly. So
That's good that there's that expectation, because as we've discussed here multiple times, our alternatives are running thin. So
Yeah.
that's why the school committee in March authorized the administration to do whatever you needed to do to procure the vehicles, to make sure that when it came time that they would be available.
And that process has continued, so we're on the cusp, I
That's
think,
good.
of
Let's
executing
keep
that.
going, and maybe we could, the next update could be that those leases are done. Mr. Storrs.
With regard to the surplus, effectively, tell me if I'm wrong, but the options we have is to give the money back or to utilize it for transportation. Is that a nice broad way of saying it? If we could find some way to use it that would meet the requirements of being for transportation, before the end of the year, we'd be able to use those funds. Is that correct?
Yes, if we had yeah.
Because I know the norm would be just to, this is
Return it to
left
the
over,
general
return
fund.
it to the general fund.
Yeah.
So the only reason I bring this up is because I know that we had discussions about minibuses and vans and things of that nature, and it seems it might be a good discussion of whether or not it would be appropriate and warranted to use those surplus funds in that way.
Well, I think there are a couple of procedural obstacles with that. Sure.
For new, yes, and you know, I'm not sure if you're talking about purchasing of new or repairing of existing, but you know, the economics of repairing existing don't make sense.
We're not talking about repairing.
So yeah, it's purchasing of new, and then as the chairman just pointed out, there's process issues involved. You know, the municipal council can't vote unless they have the formal documentation. You know, there are a whole bunch of stipulations that the documentation has to reflect, such as it's dependent on appropriation of funds. So if the council were to, you know, in the second or third year decide, well, we're not going to fund this lease, it has to be structured in a way where the recourse, which is essentially taking back the vehicles, makes sense financially to the...
If it was going to be a lease.
Yeah.
But, and I would assume with a week left, it's probably too late to try to utilize those funds in this way?
I don't think now's the time to start speculating as to what we're going to use it for. I know that, but yeah, I think you know, it sounds as though the lease is coming close to fruition.
Yes.
We need to keep moving on that. It's okay. That's the decision that the committee endorsed some time ago. I'm glad to see that seems like the support is there on the municipal side, and I think that next week when we do our final budget contingency discussion, it would be appropriate to outline sort of the processes that we have to follow. There are some that we have to follow with regard to unexpended funds, and then if the committee is going to take a position on advocating for the use. But I think that attempts to fund any priorities now, I think we have a timing issue. That's part of not knowing what the surplus is going to be until the end of the year, and that's just sort of why the process play out. But I think the city understands the financial circumstances that the schools are under, hopefully, and I think that'll be part of any position that the committee takes in terms of advocating for the return or use of those funds. Mr. Larson?
I'm all set.
Okay. Any other questions with regard to transportation? Again, I would just say that sounds like there are some decisions that are going to have to be made prior to the close of the fiscal year, and you know, we'd certainly appreciate any type of documentation that the administration can provide prior to deliberations with regard to those issues next week. We'll move on now to Mr. Furtado, if you could rejoin us in a little while.
Sure.
For our budget contingency planning discussion. And Mr. Sawyer, this is the end of the school improvement plans. We've had visits from our middle school team and our elementary school team, and I know that you and everyone in the instructional and teaching and learning departments have spent a tremendous amount of time working with the building levels, with the school councils and ILTs at those buildings. And I think it really, it's an important conversation to have, and there are important presentations to offer to make sure that the community understands that there's a tremendous amount of substantive work going on at each building to help advance our teaching and learning agenda. And so sometimes maybe they don't, the teaching and learning and the academics, they may not always be as exciting as some of the other work that we do, but it is at the center and at the core of what we are as an organization. So if you'd like to introduce the representatives from the high school who I know are here for the school improvement plan.
Yes, please, let's be joined by the administration from the high school. Yes, so this brings our set of presentations on improvement plans to a close. Tonight is the easiest of them. It's one building, one plan for this level, so much less to coordinate. A little bit more straightforward than the other ones in that regard. Again, I want to thank Jean Dyer, our data and accountability coordinator, who does a lion's share of the work in making sure that these come out in a consistent manner that will help us to communicate to everyone exactly what it is that we're trying to do. And, you know, again, we endeavor to make these a little bit better each year and to bring them more closely into, you know, the heart of our practice, so that this is not just an act of compliance, that, you know, these improvement plans really represent what the buildings will be doing to improve in the following year. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Rooney and his team.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time tonight, especially as a very busy time for everyone. I'd like to echo the sentiments that the chairman mentioned. We would like to thank our school council, thank our instructional leadership team for the time and effort that they put into it. And it's our hope that you will see that in the formulation of this school improvement plan that we are trying to fit in with the mission of the district. To serve all of our students as we seek to send them on the way to improve our world. I have a fabulous team. I appreciate all their time and effort that they put into this. And if it weren't for the guidance of Mr. Sawyer and Ms. Dyer, we'd be struggling with this. So we appreciate their time and effort as well. The first part of the school improvement plan is just a review of our previous goals and the progress that we made. We are extremely proud of the progress that we made on the 14-15 school improvement plan. I'm also pleased with the fact that throughout the course of navigating those goals, we realized that the goal that was put together by our instructional leadership team needed a better action plan. So we stepped back and we decided to modify that goal. We made a lot of progress through our ILT, and you will hear how that goal ties into the 2015-2016 plan. Also, it should be noted that our 2013-14 school improvement plan did include an assessment of our performance in the TELS survey, which is administered by the state. But the state chose to forego the TELS survey in 2013. So we did administer it in 2014, and we were very proud of those results. So with that said, I am going to turn it over to Mrs. Edmonds for the first goal.
I'm going to speak about the curriculum planning and assessment goal. Central office supports the use of the instructional management system platform in Aspen and has offered professional development to both administrators, coordinators, central office staff in the development of a common unit plan template. So Attleboro High School's goal, their curriculum planning and assessment goal, is to finalize that template, to target the courses, and to create curriculum teams that will be uploading instructional materials onto that platform. Professional development for that is going to take place during the fall and winter of 2015-2016. This work will ensure that instruction will follow a proper sequence and will be consistent across teachers or among teachers. It will also provide a central location for teachers to access units of instruction that will have lesson plans, supporting materials, videos, and assessments as well. Our timeline for the curriculum maps to be completed and presented to the faculty is June of 2016. And Ms. Hickox is going to speak on the students' goal.
Yes, and this one was born out of our belief and the mission statement that has disappeared, that all students, for students to be engaged, it's got to be meaningful, it's got to be relevant. They have to have experiences that count for them. So originally, and I think Bill spoke to this, our ILT was going to go into classrooms and sort of observe and bring back student-centered activities. But I think quickly that became a goal we wanted to retool. And it may have been premature because I think the ILT team with the leadership team said we kind of need to be speaking the same language and we need to be showing people what we mean by meaningful experiences, relevant experience, and student-engaged learning. So we took a couple steps back. We went back to departments and asked what we called the big questions of, what is history? Why history? Why are we teaching history? Why are we teaching foreign language? Why math? Why science? And from there, each department then developed a statement of purpose. And the goal going forward is that the lessons in 2015-16 will now be aligned with these department statements of purpose. And they're across departments, guidance, everything has statement of purpose. So we've begun to work on that this year. The ILT team has gone and offered professional development to subject-specific professional development on strategy. So we've begun, and now we've got to tighten it up going into next year with the lessons. And Mr. Rooney will speak to the community and family and community engagement.
Our family and community engagement goal builds upon the goal that we had for family and community engagement in 14-15, and that is to take the newly formed Blue Pride Ambassadors Club to another level. The Blue Pride Ambassadors Club was established to harness the tremendous momentum of Blue Pride in our community, but also to bring more structure and consistency to other longstanding events such as staff appreciation brunch, the all-night graduation celebration, as well as looking to try to add some other community type events to our school community, whether it be facilities beautification or other ways that we can show appreciation for our staff. We are looking to further develop the norms for the meetings that we have. We have developed a subcommittee for an event that we have planned in November of this school year. It's called the Blue Pride Palooza. It is going to be on November 7th at 7 p.m. and it's going to be an auction, a nice dinner meal, and dancing and raffles. So it's going to be an opportunity for us to bring members of the community together, whether it be alumni, parents, former parents, future parents, and community members to try to enhance the technology initiatives at the high school. We've made some tremendous progress in the last couple of years in terms of adding Chrome carts, and they have been very well received by our faculty. And it's our hope that the funds that were raised through this event will be able to enhance those offerings. And we've had some initial discussions with members of the Alumni Association, members of the Attleboro Varsity Booster Club, in terms of being able to take our volunteer database and provide them with some information that will strengthen their initiatives as well. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Connor for our final goal.
I have the professional culture goal, which is kind of in two parts, and they're both data-oriented, and it's focusing basically on how we use the data that we gather. We, much like everybody else in the district and the state, have struggled with DDMs. The high school is large. We have a lot of singleton courses that people are kind of off on their own trying to develop these measures for growth. So we were successful in complying with the state's wishes that we reported 2 DDMs per person, per teacher rather, and now we have to focus on whether these things actually tell us anything about teaching and learning and how we can improve our instruction. So we gathered a ton of data this year in all departments, and now it's our task to kind of break that down and try to find out what the measures that we deployed, whether they're actually meaningful in any way. So this is a multi-year project. I wouldn't be surprised if DDM show up on our SIP for the next 3 or 4 years until we get a handle on things. So that's a continuation of some data use, and it's about how we think about the data that we collect. Kind of tacked on there is we're going to start collecting data for our PBIS initiative, which is Positive Behaviors, Interventions, and Supports. That's a district-wide initiative that's being kind of piloted at a few different schools. And their work is not really focused about the data, but we collect so much data on discipline infractions at the high school, where they happen, when they happen, with what teachers they happen with, in what lunchrooms. So in order, when we have the PBIS team kind of developing the interventions they want to employ to help improve these behaviors, we want to have the data to back up to know where it needs to be deployed best. So that's kind of a data and PBIS combo. And that's our professional culture goal.
So once again, that's our 15-16 school improvement plan. I would like to take this opportunity to once again thank Mr. Connor for his fabulous service to the high school. Wamsutta is certainly going to benefit from his leadership, and he leaves a strong legacy at AHS.
Thank you to each of you. Thank you. We do have one last agenda item. If the high school administrators are able to stay for a few minutes, we'd ask to just hang on. Mr. Furtado, if you could rejoin the committee for our budget contingency planning discussion. So, Mr. Furtado, the budget contingency planning.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to pass out a couple of spreadsheets. Not exactly a narrative, but there are a few points within the spreadsheets that allow for variability should we need to kind of go up or down in a given component. For the committee's sake, you know, we started this process trying to respect what we understood to be priorities and emphasis the committee has put on certain aspects of our district and student life. We've done our best in a very, very trying circumstance to avoid going in those areas. So the cover spreadsheet essentially shows the level service budget, which is slightly less than what you saw in the bar charts as some real data came in from over the last 2 months, as well as the municipal budget to the schools and the resulting deficit. We had a series of meetings with school staff to go over what they perceive to be areas that they could tighten their belts on, and that is the $680,000 MBUC, as well as the backup spreadsheet to the document you have. After completing that process and having further discussions, we identified a couple of other areas for potential savings that essentially covered the level service budget, throwing off a very, very slight surplus. so essentially covering the level service budget. As we've reported to the committee, however, there are other programmatic needs that are in addition to the level service budget that we can't avoid. We've spoken to you about the grant replacement for the school within a school, the tuition replacement for the Attleboro, Attleboro Academy.
Community
Academy. The new program at Brennan, the nurse at the high school, and the monitors to free up teaching staff at the elementary school. Addressing that has been extraordinarily difficult, and we've identified a series of areas, and as I said, there's some variability within this. If the committee were so inclined, specifically, we know we're going to end the year overall in surplus. I don't know what the final number is quite yet. We just finalized our professional payrolls on Friday, and still have a support payroll to go through, all involving lump sum payments, so this calculation is going on. But we know we're going to have a surplus.
Mr. Fedari, if I could just interrupt, very briefly, I mean, I think it's important when we talk about the surplus to point out that the surplus is a consequence of the significant workforce reduction that the district has operated under throughout FY15.
Yes.
And the spending freeze that led to significant sacrifices in each building community and in the central office for the second half of FY15.
No question. Without those events, we would have been in.
And they were
very dire
events,
consequences.
as the people who bore the brunt of them know. And
Yes.
Our message throughout these past several months and really the past several years has been that we cannot, as a district, continue to make the type of progress that is expected of the community and that the district has enjoyed operating in the financial manner that we're operating, that we are just too expensive of an organization right now for this to continue. And what those solutions are, I think warrants discussion and debate, but we can't start that discussion and debate prematurely, which is part of why this committee and this administration has focused, as we have, on long-term strategic planning, because if we're going to make the argument to the community that we are worthy of its investment, we need to explain what it is we would do with that investment and what benefits it would yield. And so, I was speaking with someone in the community about the strategic planning process, and they referred to it as inside baseball. Perhaps it is. Maybe it's boring. I don't know. But it's extremely important, and we aren't going to be able to make a credible argument as to why the community should make the type of commitment we think we need without being able to articulate what we would do with it. So I just wanted to point that out, because I think sometimes people hear surplus and there can be a sense that we're crying wolf.
No, yes, I think that's terribly important. The surplus is the result of sacrifices made throughout the year, both in terms of personnel and discretionary spending on the part of the school buildings. And there are things you do not want to be doing during a school year. You go into a school year with a plan to execute for your classroom, which builds into a plan that you execute for a building, which builds into a plan that you execute for a district. And you have the kind of rug pulled out from you mid-year. It's difficult to make those adjustments on the fly. I think the staff here did an exceptional job. And that is not how you want to behave over the course of a school year.
Thank you.
That being said, the new items are just north of a $400,000 price tag. We've identified 5 areas. Again, they could all, except for the first one, be turned up or down if the committee had concerns with any of them. We currently, they don't require any personnel reductions. They're taking advantage of currently open positions, as well as some contracts, and While you don't like to use surpluses to offset operating costs, it is allowed under Mass State law to prepay special education tuitions up to 25% of your obligation. Our tuitions are in the neighborhood of $3 to $3.5 million, depending on the day. So we are eligible to spend up to $800,000. Our surplus isn't anything near there, and it would be imprudent to kind of go to that level. But we feel that the number presented to the committee tonight is both reasonable and does not put us into jeopardy from an operating perspective going forward.
Okay. And I know there have been some questions. I mean, we've planned all along for our final vote on budgetary matters to be on June 29th. That's a week from tonight. From an operational standpoint, I know there's going to be some data input between now and the 29th, but there's nothing, that's more just from an administrative standpoint, needing to have the budget up and running. And
for the committee's perspective, the city will obligate us to probably by Monday enter the budget that's been approved by the municipal council, which is a $69,123,000 number. We will enter a budget that totals that amount, and again, depending on the decisions made up to the 29th, we can make budget adjustments to reflect those changes.
I mean, really, subsequent to that, potentially, we could, in terms of transfers. But again, I think this is good input, and I appreciate it. And I think that, to give the committee the time over the week to let this sort of sink in a little bit, and we'll have a good discussion next week. I do want to make one point that these 5 items, 15% reduction in supplies, which is significant, and prepaying tuitions, leaving 3 coaching positions open. To some, they may sound very severe. To others, they may sound like, given the nature of the financial crisis that we've endured over the past several months, that these are not easy decisions to make, but they would imagine the committee's decision would be even more difficult. And I think that what's important to note is that this is against a backdrop of very difficult choices having already been made. That our workforce will again be reduced, that layoff notices were issued last week, and that other positions that we already know, that the committee has identified as priorities and the administration has advocated for, will go unfilled, and that this is the end of a long, difficult decision-making process. This is not in any way a silver lining that this is all there is. I mean, the reality is this is what's left after painful and detrimental reductions have already been imposed out of necessity.
No question. Nobody's happy with the outcome.
Yeah. And it's unsustainable. And I think that's the point that we need to continue to reiterate, that I don't know if you continue to reiterate, that might be redundant, but
no, that's okay.
I don't know.
It can't be too redundant.
Good point. All right. Anyone have any questions or comments? We will again obviously be discussing this next week. Mr. Withers?
I'm just a little confused and frustrated, I guess, because I don't, and I understand that you're all in a difficult position here, but I don't really understand what this is. It doesn't seem to me much detail if we're going to be voting on a budget next Monday. I mean,
I'm hoping that there'll be additional
There will be an
documentation.
accompanying narrative to the
be-
spreadsheets, but this is sort of the math behind it.
The accompanying narrative will be imperative.
Issue tomorrow.
Okay. So we're not going to get it on Monday night and have to vote on it on Monday
No,
night?
sir. No,
If we get it on Monday night, we're not
we'll
going
get
to
it tomorrow.
So
Okay.
hopefully that's clear.
All right.
And I want to be very clear. Tomorrow would be great, but if there's got to be a revision done on Thursday, then tomorrow would not be good. So let's get the memo and the narrative and the supportive documentation done. Let's make sure it's accurate and clear, readable. People can call you with questions. Would be good.
Absolutely.
And come in Monday night informed. That sound good, Mr. Withers?
It does. I guess my question is, we have to vote on it next week.
Yes and no.
Is it just we just have to vote on the number next week? Because if
we
there
certainly have to, procedurally we have to vote on the number.
Okay.
Potentially there can be transfers made indefinitely.
Right.
But from an operating standpoint, I think it's the administration's hope to have a sense as to the direction the committee is giving as early as possible.
Because what I would say, I don't think this committee has ever attempted to or actually, micromanaged anything. But if there's a situation where there is a consensus disagreement as to, some of the cuts or where some of the money's going, given the priorities, is that, and next week comes and the budget we see might want a little
Again,
different.
I think it's possible that in light of the dire circumstances we're under, that there'll be transfers made for an extended period of time in the hope of having a clear sense. I think the reality is, and feel free to jump in, but their options are going to be so limited that it will necessarily limit some of the discussions.
And again, there's margin to play in the kind of that bottom section, other than in the first line, that contract. That is the value of the contract. There's no more to be had there.
Right.
But the other four areas, again, could be adjusted to accommodate concerns if there are some.
Right, and that's what I think will need to be spelled out in the memo, so that way when we have that discussion, it can be an informed one.
Just one more question then on the $120,000, the prepay tuitions. That's what you were talking about paying from our surplus.
Yes.
So that would essentially be pushing that 120 down the road to 2016, 2017, if that's the direction we took.
Again, yes.
And we might have to do it. I acknowledge that. I just
And that's what I said. If that number were $400,000, I would have a really profound concern from an operational perspective. $100,000 isn't really sticking your neck out too much. You certainly would have an expectation to see that every year. It's going to be very hard to manage a $67 million budget within $100,000 of zero. So you can sort of count on that number to some degree. Again, $400,000, you're really rolling the dice. So,
thanks.
Any other, Mr. Storrs?
Athletics reduction, can you explain that one, please? I know it's only 20,000, but just stood out to me.
I think there's a kind of a corresponding offset by the department will come back to the committee for an increase in fees. User fee.
That's different than the user fee that was already brought forward. Is that correct?
Well, the first page had an initial proposal.
Right.
And again, there's significant variability in that line, in the sense that in a liability or a positive, if all of your teams go to the state championship, that line balloons. And if none of them do, you have a surplus. So it's, we try to identify something in the middle.
Tyler,
And
Jack,
again,
how are we looking next year?
Soccer or baseball? On the tennis team.
Yeah.
So it's a best effort estimate as to where that will sit at the end of the year, somewhere in the middle of zero and state championships across the board.
We'll see. You never
That's
know.
right.
But, I mean, again, one of the issues with the specifics are these numbers are so fluid,
Yep.
and there's such moving targets. So many variables change throughout the year that if we could say we've got a problem and it's to this penny, maybe the discussion would be different. I think, unfortunately, when you're dealing with $68 million over the course of a year, the fluidity is too extensive, and you need to sort of paint in broad strokes. We do need to make certain decisions with regard to priorities, and appreciate the effort that is being made here, and we'll need to deal with that next week. But I mean, the short version of the story is, like, we're in a lot of trouble. This is not where we want to be from a financial standpoint, and it's I know it's causing a lot of stress. I know some of these decisions that have been made in recent weeks are harmful to the educational interests of students. There's no getting around that, and it's as we've said over and over and over again, it's not sustainable. So thank you, Mr. Furtado, and we look forward to seeing you again next week with another budget contingency planning update. We are going to be holding off on the consideration of the proposed CBA that we had hoped to discuss tonight. And at this time, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, 2 and 3, the school committee will convene an executive session for purposes of conducting strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the school committee. The school committee will not reconvene in open session.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Singer.
Yes.
Mrs. Zito. Mr. Larson.
Yes.
Mr. Murphy, yes. Mrs. Scales. Mrs. Sawyer.
Yes.
Mr. Withers.
Yes.
Mr. Storrs.
Yes.
We'll take a 90-second recess if we can, and then continue our discussion.
I think.
Thomas Reed was